What defectors did David gain while with the Philistines on his way to Jezreel? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Chronicles on walking through the Bible.
Glory of his cross.
Today we're going to be discussing 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verses 16 to 22. But before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 16. But if you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, 1 Chronicles chapter 12, beginning at verse 16. Then some of the sons of Benjamin and Judah came to David at the stronghold, and David went out to meet them and answered and said to them, If you have come peaceably to help me, my heart will be united with you. But if you betray me to my enemies, since there is no wrong in my hands, may the God of our fathers look and bring judgment. Then the Spirit came upon Amasai, chief of the captains, and he said, We are yours, O David. We are on your side, O son of Jesse. Peace, peace to you, and peace to your helpers, for your God helps you. So David received them and made them captains of the troop. And some from Manasseh defected to David when he was going with the Philistines to battle against Saul. But they did not help them, for the lords of the Philistines sent him away by agreement, saying, He may defect to his master Saul and endanger our heads. When he came to Ziklag, those of Manasseh who defected to him were Abna, Jozabad, Jediel, Michael, Jozabad, Elihu, and Zelathai, captains of thousands, who were from Manasseh. And they helped David against the bands of the raiders, for they were all mighty men of valor, and they were captains in the army. For at that time they came to David day by day to help him, until it was a great army, like the army of God. We've been discussing David's mighty men over the past few lessons. We can sort of divide this list contained in the last two chapters. Mighty men from David's time as king in Hebron, and then when he became king over all Israel. And his mighty men here in chapter 12, coming from a time when he was on the run from King Saul. It's not that there wasn't some overlap between these two time periods as it concerns David's mighty men, for we know that there were. It's just that at different times, different sets of people came to the forefront. For instance, during the time when David was on the run from Saul, it would be surprising that some of Saul's own tribe of Benjamin would defect to David's side, but they did. And it would also be surprising to see people from a tribe as far away as Gad on the east side of the Jordan traverse the land, risk their lives by crossing the Jordan River during the spring months when it was flooded, in order to join David's men. But that speaks to the character of these men and the righteousness of David's cause. David had a following in Ziklag, which was late in Saul's reign, but he also had a following during his times in the wilderness when he was at different strongholds. Remember, David was on the run from Saul for quite a number of years, and so that he gathered up men along the way shouldn't surprise us. And it also shouldn't surprise us that when people came to him at first, he might be suspicious, just as he was of some of the men of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. Now, of Benjamin, that might be expected, for they were from the tribe of King Saul. But why would David suspect some from his own tribe? Well, recall that there were some peoples in Judah who did betray David's position to Saul, which is likely the reason for David's lack of trust. David tells them that if they come in peace, he would be glad and would accept them into his ranks. But if they came to betray him, then David called on God to judge them for that, for David's cause was righteous. The Spirit of the Lord came upon a man named Amasai, who proclaimed that they were David's sons, recognizing that God helps David. This statement shows these men's faith in God, for being able to recognize that God was no longer with King Saul because of his evil, but rather with David because of David's righteous faith. With that confession, David accepted them into his band of men. In verses 19 to 22, we find another instance where David gained men, this time from the tribe of Manasseh. The occasion for this defection occurred while David was going up with the Philistines, who were going up to fight Saul. Recall that when the Philistines marched north, they were marching to the valley of Jezreel, which was in the tribal territory of Issachar, though on the boundary with Manasseh. Thus, they would have to travel through Manasseh to get there, so that David gained some defections here makes sense. To refresh our memories, though, as to why David didn't complete the journey with the Philistines up to fight Saul, let's go back to 1 Samuel 29 and read verses 1 to 5. Then the Philistines gathered together all their armies at Aphek, and the Israelites encamped by the fountain which is in Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines passed in review by hundreds and by thousands, but David and his men passed in review at the rear with Achish. Then the princes of the Philistines said, "What are these Hebrews doing here?" And Achish said to the princes of the Philistines, "Is this not David, the servant of Saul, king of Israel, who has been with me these days or these years? And to this day I have found no fault in him, since he defected to me." But the princes of the Philistines were angry with him. So the princes of the Philistines said to him, "Make this fellow return, that he may go back to the place which you have appointed for him, and do not let him go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he become our adversary. For with what could he reconcile himself to his master, if not with the heads of these men? Is this not David, of whom they sang to one another in dances, saying, 'Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s'?" When we discussed this passage back in our study of 1 Samuel, we noted that God is likely working behind the scenes through his providence in order to protect David. Based on David's character and past actions, I do not believe David would betray his nation nor kill Saul. Rather, I believe David might have done just what these Philistines were afraid of: betray them and bring victory to Israel. God, though, knew better, and thus protected David from both the Philistines and the Israelite army. For remember, he would need to gain Israel's trust, and what worse way to do it than being seen as fighting alongside the Philistines? David was thus sent back to Ziklag with these men, where in chapter 30 they were helpful in David defeating the Amalekite raiders who had come and taken many of the women and children from those among David's men. Again, what seemed like a list of names actually helps ground David and these men into history, a history we covered already. We'll conclude chapter 12, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verses 23 to 40, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.